Greetings everyone, here we are with another delightful video. This time I'm going to cover the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition 2024 version Player's Handbook. This also goes by the term D&D 5.24, 5.25, 5.5. I've even seen people who said Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, 2nd edition. My theory, my operating theory, is that Wizards of the Coast originally wanted to call this Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 5th Edition. But they were beaten to the punch by Level Up Advanced 5th Edition. So, because they copyrighted Advanced 5th Edition, the name, Wizards of the Coast ran into a situation like, oh my freaking goodness, what are we going to call this thing now? Because we were trying to hide the name that we wanted to use for this so close to our chest that someone else decided to name their variant of Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition with it. When was this published, by the way? It was published in the United Kingdom. They have very pretty strict copyright laws on books for the United Kingdom. A lot of British people make their entire living writing books, and a lot of British people, for some strange reason, make a lot of money making fact and information channels on YouTube. It's one of those crazy things. Like, I think almost half the British economy or something like that is just literally publishers of books and YouTube fact channels. If someone wants to look up the statistic for that, that's me just shitting out of my brain here for that. But anyways, this book MSRP is for $49.99. It's on sale right now on Amazon.com. It has this really nice black inner page. It opens to this with a bunch of characters popping out of the book. Please note that this book is over 300 plus pages. It's 384 pages. There is no player character sheets that are included in this book, so you can't scan them out. There is a page further in that actually has a page where it shows the player handbook, not player handbook, but player character sheets. But they're numbered, so they tell you what each section is for. They sell them in a separate little pack like this. Ted from Nerd Immersion already covered this pack, and apparently he was not thrilled with it. I have yet to open it, so I don't know what they're like. Hopefully they're not just all one same type of character sheet, and there's actually some variety in there. But anyways, you open up to this nice page. I've heard that people get DMCA aid for showing certain things in this book. You have a fairly thick table of contents right here that shows off a lot of the character stuff. This is a basic table of contents right here. It's not particularly exceptional, but it does give you enough detail to tell you where to find everything where to find stuff. Okay, so if you're looking for like character rules for your classes, you can easily find it from here. You can find the general sections for each group of mechanics, but it doesn't list out every little rule mechanic in the book. For that, you have to go to the very back of the book. In the very back of the book, there is a rules glossary, as well as an index. You saw that earlier. That more quickly gets you to where you want to go. And if you're looking for just general rules, the rules index in the back of the book is a pretty handy space to thumb through really fast to get the general rule changes from the previous version of Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition to this version. If you want to dig deeper into those things and learn more, you go to this. First and foremost, Each chapter has a page of artwork that is fairly nice. Some of this artwork has been replicated from Magic the Gathering cards. They go over everything in a rather deep detail as to what a thing is. They even have a little paragraph about D3s, D6s, and so forth. Damage, random tables, and so forth. They give you all the basic terminology. They give you the 6 ability scores here, as well as what's typically tied to. Ability score ranges, ability modifiers, ability check examples, as well as the little demonstration of what results could lead to. And they very, very carefully go over all the mechanics related to the dice or rolling. They talk about your skills and your actions in this section right here. You have actions, bonus actions, and reactions for the system. They have a nice little piece of artwork right there. You got a social interaction example section right here, or a replay as the Japanese would call it. You have a section on exploration, as well as a little example of exploration replay right here. Little rules about travel pace and so forth. Finding, hitting objects and carrying objects and breaking objects and so forth. And continues on. You have a section on combat rules. So if you were completely new to Dungeons and Dragons, this book is set up to teach you how to play from the start of the book all the way to the finish, and so much more. Section on conditions. Now, this is what I find really interesting. They have the characters from the 80s cartoon that Ernie Gygax was head on. Ernie Gygax put a lot of effort into making sure that this cartoon show was what it was. He was the head consultant for the show. And he came up with a lot of character concepts and story elements for the show when he was developing it with the studio. Now, this is the weird thing about this book. They change up the order of how you create a character. For whatever strange reason, they decided to make picking a character class first, as opposed to determining ability scores or character roles. My problem. This is the example. By the way, this is the character sheets as it showed out. I don't know why people hate this character sheet. This is actually oriented or designed very specifically for new people to play the system. It gives you ample size sections to write out all your information for your character. This is, however, not a great character sheet for a campaign that goes super long in the system. This is just more or less a decent one for people who are playing in the first 10 into 15 level. First 10 levels. The problem with it is that the spell sheet is too short for longer campaigns, and class features section is too short, and the weapon section is too short, and the species traits section is too short, and the feats section is too short. These sections right here are way too small, as well as these right here. This is very well designed. This is very well thought out right here. This is way too small. This is way too small. But this is perfectly fine for like the first 10 levels of a D&D adventure. So first and foremost, they kind of go out of order because way they make it out that you choose your character class first, then determine origins, then determine ability scores, and then choose an alignment, fill in details. Where you basically go into here, it actually explains as it goes throughout. It actually, your first step is not really doing too much. They basically want you to choose class, but not really do the important step. Now, the important step, I will personally say, is that when you are determining a class, the best way to build a character is to find out what your game master wants as a ability score determination system. So if your game master wants to use standard array, that determines what kind of classes you want to use, because some classes need beefier stats in more stats. It's the mad problem as opposed to the sad problem. There's single attribute determination and multi-attribute determination. Multi-attribute classes are classes like monk, where you need to have a bunch of good stats to be a really good playable character. And then there's some classes like wizard or warlock, where you can basically have just one stat that's good, and all your other stats can go down very quickly from there. And your character is perfectly fine with having really good, having okay charisma or good charisma if you're a warlock, or a wizard if you're going with intelligence. But if you're a monk, you need good dexterity and good wisdom and decent constitution. And the problem with that, and the same thing goes with paladin. You need good strength, good charisma, and good constitution. So having you choose your class first before determining what numbers you're having for your class is going to cause trouble. So for whatever reason, Wizards of the Coast rearranged the order in which you build a character class on D&D Beyond and in this book, and made it into a very unoptimal, very problematic system. So I would personally disregard the order in which Wizards of the Coast wants you to make a character, and I would start with determining your ability numbers. So first and foremost, you want to either go with rolling, or going with the standard array, or your ability score. So you want to right here, determining ability scores. You want to make step 3 step 1 instead of step 3. Okay, no step 3, step 1. This is the best option to go with this. I don't know why they made it step 3. Maybe they wanted to change it up radically from D&D 2024. Not 2024, but 2014. Or in older editions where you rolled your stats first. But rolling your stats first, or determining your point buy first, or your standard array first, picking one of those options is the right option to start with as first thing, you know. So choosing your class, and then going 2 steps, and then finding out what your stats are going to be that you're going to pick out for each ability is going to result in many people, I want to be a wizard, or I want to be a monk, or I want to be a fighter. They go through step 2, which is, what is step 2? Step 2 is basically choosing your species, which is wrong. That should be step 1. Choosing your species or race should be step 2 or step 3. Either or. It works either way. You can be step 2 or step 3. But choosing your ability score, numbers, and the manner in which you generate them should always be number 1. Because that determines what is a viable option, or what is a tolerable option for your class and race or species. So let's say you wanted to be a monk. You choose monk. You roll for your stats. You find out you have a lot of bad rolls and 1 good roll. You are going to struggle as a monk with one good roll and a bunch of mediocre to bad rolls, because you need to have good wisdom, and you need to have good dexterity and decent constitution. So what you would end up having to do is go back and scratch out all those pages and redo your character class stuff, just to find out, just to pick a class that you can play with those stats. Because some classes are really tied to how you have stats in them. As long as you're generally 15 or better in your good stat, that is a good character stat array for your characters. So in this case, if you went and chose Paladin, and your Dungeon Master were to tell you, hey, I want you to go ahead and roll stats, and you got all a bunch of low numbers and mid-range numbers, and you only have one good roll, you're going to struggle with the Paladin. You're going to have to decide whether you're going to have good charisma or you're going to have good strength. Paladin really should have both good strength and good charisma. So there you go. What I mean by good charisma or good stat or anything, needs to be like a 15 or better. It should be a 14, 15 or better for your good stat. Standard array gives you two numbers. Your good numbers are your 15 and your 14 for your standard array, and then you have okay numbers like 13, 12, and 8. Not 8. 13, 12, and 10, which are okay numbers, and your weak number is like 8. If you ended up rolling a bunch of single-digit numbers, Paladin is not going to be a good class for you because you're going to go down quick. And you're not going to be able to play a Paladin properly. Same thing with a Monk. So, I really, really hate the fact that they made choose your class first, which results in people wedding themselves or deciding that I want to be this class. Boom, this is the situation. And then they roll their stats, or they use standard array, or they do something else later on if the game master has a particular dice system that they want to use, and they find out that they don't have good stats for their class. Some classes like Wizard, Warlock, and Sorcerer are stat friendly for for noobs who want to make characters. These are the super easy classes to optimize for because you only need one good stat. You can have garbage stats in pretty much everything. You can have garbage stats in the vast majority of your rolls, and or just barely okay. Like you can have a character like a wizard who has almost all their stats being between 6 and 11, except for intelligence. And you're a perfectly fine wizard. You can have an 8. You can have anywhere between a 14 and a 20 for your intelligence for your wizard, and all your other stats basically being like single digit or just barely over 10, and you're perfectly fine, no problem. This is one of those classes that is favored by optimancers or optimizers like wizards, warlocks, and stuff like that. I find it really funny that they're so quick to being, oh, I am incredibly intelligent and I am really good at optimizing my character class, and they pick like the ultra easy mode for optimization. A good optimizer can take any class and optimize them to be fun and good to play, but a really poor optimizer can only really do it with single stat or sad classes, or take the easy options to do it. So after you go through the first, second, and third levels, which are all the steps which are all wrong, they need to rearrange those. You go to step 5, which is step 4, which is your alignment, and your step 5 to fill in the details, which is perfectly fine. Alignment being your step 4 is perfectly fine because it's so low on the need to do territory that it could literally just be like, it's just a minor thing. You could throw it away or make it important, either or, in your campaign. Step 5 is basically just the cleanup work. They give you basic instructions on level advancement, as well as gaining levels, tiers of play, and they also have the rules for multi-classing and proficiencies, and the rules for that. I find this interesting. This is no longer, multi-classing is no longer a variant rule, but baked into what they claim to be the system. However, I don't really think they fixed or optimized out with that as well. You have trinket table. I don't know why they have a trinket table. They can just have a little section that says trinkets. You can pick like one of these trinkets. Trinkets are non-impactful items. They're usually something that dungeon masters will dungeon master or game masters will like. Oh, this is a neat little item. I guess it's like gonna make it this as an important thing in your character's story, and make a whole adventure around it, or have it become the important thing in the major chapter of your character's life and your campaign. You have a nice little overview section of the different classes. As I said before, it's important to note that some classes are stat easy to allocate, but are more complex in the mechanics, and some classes are more complex in stat allocation, but harder, but easier in the mechanics to operate. And that's the give and take in a D&D type system, where you have some character classes that you need to put more effort into arranging their stats better, but the mechanics in which they operate on are way easier. And then there's the ones that where they're really hard or really easy, really hard on the really easy on the stats, but hard on the mechanics. You got the classic barbarian. I do like the fact that they reorganized this section. You have the core barbarian information in one set of pages. So you have the basic overview of the barbarian and the basic mechanics and your first level feature, and it walks you through. You have a nice little chart here of all your barbarian stuff, and it just walks you through the basic barbarian mechanics for the core of the barbarian. And then they have a column, piece of artwork, and a column featuring out all the abilities that a subclass gets. And I personally really like the subclass concept of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, as it is a very simple way of customizing character classes, making a character class into many classes. So a person just has to basically learn the basic core of the class, and then they play through that and acquire subclass, and then they go on from there. Now, there's an important thing I've had to note and take a 5-second here. I am personally working on my own 5th edition-esque system. However, I'm also going to include a version of the class that has no subclass in it. So basically the generic or basic version of that class. And then there'll be this basic version subclass version of it, which is just going to be simplified, and then there's going to be the subclasses plus that. So there you go. You basically have 4 subclasses for each class. Some classes, like the barbarian, are just basically just straight or mostly melee with some magical elements tossed in, where you have other classes like the bard, which is a blend of martial and magic. It's important to note, if you're new to D&D, there are 3 major groups in classes. There are the mostly martial classes, and they might have a subclass here and there that has magical abilities or elements to them. And then there is the hybrid classes, which are basically a blend of half and half magic and half martial characteristics. And then you have the purely martial classes, which are like not martial, purely magical classes or spellcasters, say like wizard and sorcerer. They might have subclasses that add in some martial capabilities to the class, but they're predominantly magical classes, and they suffer greatly if they're in melee combat and stuff like that. So you happen to have you have cleric here, you got the cleric subclasses and so forth. It's really nice that here's the druid, you've got your basic overview of the druid, you got your basic information box up here. It's really nice organized, so it's easy to spot out this information. And then there's this features section that goes on to the next set of pages. That's for the core druid, as well as your chart. And then you go into a list of, since this is a magical class, they also include all the common spells for that class in this book. And then they immediately go into the subclasses, like the Circle of the Land, and Circle of the Moon, and Circle of the Sea, and so forth. and each one of those typically has a piece of artwork associated with. Now, the occasional weird thing is sometimes they will take the piece of artwork and will banner on the back side of the class. So most of the information for a Circle to See is right here. And then you have the banner art for that subclass, the sidebar art. And then the back end of that class is abilities. And then you go into, this is the back end here. And then you got Circle the Stars, which that piece of artwork is right here. So you sometimes the structure of where they place the artwork kind of gets knocked off alignment here and there as you go through the book, because some of the classes have longer sections of abilities, or they put in a huge section on their spells, and you end up with that situation. I personally enjoy all classes in Dungeons and Dragons, as each one of them has their own flavor and combination of characteristics that plays out. I'm going to skip through this, and I'm going to get to the background section. So we get past the wizard here, and we get into character origins, which is chapter 4. A nice piece of artwork right there. And the character origins basically goes through your character, species, and background. Weirdly enough, they organize it on the introduction page as you got parts of the background and then character, species, and then you got background description. So you go little summary on the background here, and then you go to species, and then you start back into background again. And this, I don't know why they misorganized it like this. They should just literally have just gone with background, all background, and then they put species somewhere else for the back, or just memo, go to this section to start with species. But they have this section for backgrounds, and they reduce or simplified down the background. They got rid of the feature, the background feature, and tossed that away. And then they referenced in a feat that you get, such as Charlatan, you get skilled, see chapter 5. Now, people say, like, oh, now backgrounds have feats. They've always had feats. All backgrounds and all in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition 2014 had a feat. It was just called feature. And the feature had mechanical feature capabilities specifically customized to that background. A specific feature that was specific to that background. The difference now is that it's generic feats that you can pick up with another character or something else later on. And they reference the feat. So in any ways, what people are thinking is an upgrade is actually a downgrade. You lose a feature. Good day, sir. I do like, however, they included Farmer. I've always personally found it really weird that in 2014 they did not have the Farmer background. And they never had a Farmer background throughout the 2014 version of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, even though Farmer was an extremely common background in stories and novels or movies for the hero of legend to come from, or something like that. Luke Skywalker was a moisture farmer on Tatooine. There's like hundreds or thousands of stories that have farmers as a background, and as a person who grew up on a farm, it really stuck out really weird to me that they did not have farmer in Dungeons & Dragons 2014. And I personally feel that is largely a byproduct of most of the people who work for Wizards of the Coast are city kids. They're city suburb kids. They lived in suburbs and cities and little mansions and stuff like that. They never grew up on farms. So when they think of themselves and where they're starting from, they would not naturally start from a farm. They would start from being in a city or something like that, or some other vocation. So it's really nice to get a farmer background back in D&D. And since I grew up on a farm, I I will read through the farmer background and tell you whether it's accurate or not. Ability scores you can upgrade with this background. Strength, Constitution, and Wisdom. I agree with that. All those things are really important for being a farmer. Feat is tough. That's accurate. I do say that. Animal handling and nature, accurate as well. There could also, if there was a mechanical skill, that would be accurate for farmers. Tool proficiency, carpenter's tools, yes. But you could also have, or this is the first point in which they kind of fall short on. Tool proficiency could be a multi-choice. You could have carpentry, yes, but you could also probably have like smithing is another one. That would be another very common skill that farmers would learn in olden times. If I could find like skills section. The skills are in the front. You know what? Honestly, the skills are in the front. I forgot that. Let's see. Let's go back to the skills section in the front of the book. Let's see what other options they have for skills in the front of the book. I swear it was in the front of the book. Okay, acrobatics, animal handling, arcana, athletics, deception, history, insight. That's skills. Oh, yeah. You know what, actually, what I'm looking for is tool proficiencies, not skills. And tool proficiencies would be in the tools section. So what we have for tool proficiencies, we got artisan's tools, alchemist tools, brewer's supplies, calligraphy tools, carpenter's tools, cartographer's tools, cobbler's tools, cooking utensils, glass blowers, jeweler's kit, leather workers, mason's tools, painters, pottery, smithing, tinkerers, weavers, wood carvers, and so forth. I would say if you're a farmer, carpenter's tools are a definite yes, but also wood carver's tools would also be a good option, as well as smithing, and also cooking, because farmers do a lot of cooking too. So that might have been a situation where they might have should have added in at least another 2 to 3 more options there. Like, or you can choose carpentry tools, or wood carver's tools, or blacksmithing tools, or so forth. Maybe even herbalism tools, because that was another thing that farmers got into and learned. Okay, equipment for farmers. Choose A or B. You can choose a sickle, carpenter's tools, healer's kit, iron pot, shovel, traveler's clothes, traveler's clothes, and 30 gold pieces or 50 gold pieces. My general rule with everyone is that if you're new to D&D, you always pick the pile of equipment, like sickle, carpenter's tools, and so forth. This is pretty much accurate. They should also give you proficiency with herbalism, as I said here before. You have a sickle, carpenter's tools, yes, healer's kit, iron pot, shovel, traveler's clothes, and 30 gold pieces. I would probably, if it decreased the gold pieces and gave you also a blacksmith's kit or blacksmith's tools, as well as the proficiency of blacksmithing, because that was a very common thing. My grandpa did a lot of welding and did a lot of metal work on his time, and pretty much every farmer does metal work. So you would be a hybrid of a carpenter and a blacksmith as a farmer. Now, as far as everything else, I'm just going to past that. So you lose a feature from there, and you just get a generic feat. And then there's always this nice piece of artwork right here. A lot of people would like this piece of artwork, But personally, I would have reduced it to half of the page, or just a quarter here, and had it for like one thing, and then added in a feature. So you'd not just get a feat, but you also get a feature. So you get extra there. Turning it all into feats, which are features, is kind of reducing and take away from people. You got species. Now the problem with this section here is that it creates a run-on effect. I don't know who designed this section of the book, species descriptions, but this seems to have been reduced in importance in Dungeons & Dragons picking a species or race. It's harder to visually pick out the race or species very quickly in the book. The orientation of the artwork in relationship to the text box actually makes it harder, because sometimes they will start with the piece of artwork on the top here for Dragonborn, and sometimes they'll have the information for Azamar or a species above it, and then they have the piece of artwork down here. They should have been more consistent, and they should have just took species description and just put that across the top here in one long section, took this artwork and set up here, and then had the information for the species down here, and then kept repeating that from every page on, which is the basic pattern that you do see, but sometimes it deviates. And then you have this weird situation where some of the species lose a lot of their subspecies or subraces, and then others keep them. So all your dwarves got merged into one big soup of dwarfness, where all your elves keep all their variations, and you lose all your you have a more limited range in your gnomes, and you got an expanded range of Goliath, but then you lose all your variations of your halflings. So there's a strange, as I said before, there's a strange situation where you lose a whole bunch of range of options for one species, and then you gain a whole bunch of range of options for another. And I don't know why it's the visual distinctness. I heard that theory that it's specifically the very easy appearance equals race or subrace kind of thing, which is actually kind of racist in itself, because if you are obviously appear to be a different version visually, you become a different version, where if your visual appearance is really subtle and it's hard to pick out the differences, you just merge those all into one big group or homogeneous club. So there you go. So you get a diversification theory version of like this, where you have a bunch of different versions of Goliaths, and then you have just one type of halfling. And I really wish they would keep the variety of halflings, and the variety of Goliaths, and the variety of dwarves, and the variety of humans, and the variety of this, and the variety of that. They should have expanded it, not reduced it for some, only to keep the expanded for some of them. This is really inconsistent. Also, another weird thing, for whatever strange reason, Wizards of the Coast turned orcs into Latinos, and then focused heavily on their lore to be specifically about them traveling into new lands and stuff like that. So, for whatever strange reason, Wizards of the Coast went racist again and made orcs into a group of people who travel from land to land. And when you make a group of people who travel land to land, you decide to redesign a lot of their artwork to make them look like Latinos. See, orcs weren't explicitly like racist before, but now they are. you got now 3 different varieties of tieflings. That's perfectly fine. And you have versions. I do like the whole. You have your devilish, infernal tieflings. You got your chthonic, Yugoloth origin tieflings, and your abyssal tieflings, or your demon-based tieflings. They weirdly enough, they use the same appearance structure, even though demons have their own classic range of appearances, and same thing with Yugoloths have their own range of appearances, and the devils have their own range of appearances that tend to be in a spectrum. So what you have here is all devil versions of tieflings, but they're now divided up amongst infernal, chthonic, and abyssal. And to be honest, some demons look a little like devils, and some Yugoloths look a little bit like devils and demons. You got some devils that look a little like demons and Yugoloths, but they don't overlap super heavily. They just have some traits that touch into each other or blend. But in this case, they turn them all into devils. So you have essentially what's called the illusion of variety, where you basically have the same thing, but it's artificially divided up amongst itself. So there's artificial divides for something that basically is just the same thing. So there you go. You got the feats section. You got a combat wheelchair and staircase. Not a good time. The problem with combat wheelchairs is that first and foremost, this is going to be plain and simple. If you make a combat wheelchair capable of going through dungeons and caves and stuff like that, it becomes an advantage, like a spiral walker or something that can climb up and down. It actually is an improvement to the person. So technically, if you make the mechanics for a combat wheelchair capable of walking up and down stairs or slopes or jumping across gaps or stuff like that, you now have a mechanical advantage having such a thing. So then why not have everyone be in combat wheelchairs? If you don't do that, then you just have a regular wheelchair. You now have to design everything in the world to accommodate a wheelchair, and that can actually cause a break in verisimilitude, where people like suddenly realize, why is everything wheelchair accessible? Why is this death trap dungeon have a convenient wheelchair ramp everywhere? Oh yeah, there's a convenient wheelchair ramp. You can just roll right up it, kind of thing. So there's that first set of problems of combat wheelchairs. The second problem with combat wheelchairs is that the vast majority of people... I live in Union Grove. Union Grove is right next to we have a college for disabled people, Shepherd's College, and we have a colony for severely disabled people, and I grew up around really disabled people. And if you haven't noticed, I have this weird thing with my speaking where I have a hard time wording things out. I worked with a lot of disabled people, but I also went to a lot of classes with a lot of disabled people. First and foremost, the ultra majority, like 99.99999 of wheelchair people. And I only do that like 99.999 because I never met one that was into this concept. Pretty much every one of them do not want to be in wheelchairs in a TTRPG. People who are disabled have a really strong tendency towards not wanting to be disabled in their fantasy games. And they typically gravitate super fast towards any character or race or anything like that that is the anti of their disability. So like wheelchair people, paraplegics, quadriplegics, typically like to want to play monks. They want to play Aarakocra monks that can fly everywhere. They want to be free from the ground, and they could go through anything they want. They can run super fast. They can run up walls, also fly and do all kinds of stuff. They want to be the most dexterous class. The mentally impaired people want to be wizards, and they want to be the smartest characters in the game. This is an extremely common pattern that almost occurs with every single disabled person I know. And the only reason why I put in that like 0.001 is at some place, somewhere in the world, there is a wheelchair bound person who wants to play a character in a wheelchair. So I don't know him, I don't know her or it or them, but pretty much every person who is disabled doesn't want to play a character that is disabled that I have ever known. And I've known a lot of them. I probably know more of them than the entire Wizard of the Coast staff knows, because I literally live in a town with a lot of disabled people that literally collects all the disabled people from all over Wisconsin to it. We literally have a college that specializes in teaching disabled people life skills like cooking, cleaning, and stuff like that, and greenhouse work. We have a colony of severely disabled people. We have a lot of disabled people in my area. I'm not joking. They really do not like this stuff. Okay? So if anything, I have found that this is actually the most bigoted thing that anyone could ever put into a TTRPG to promote to disabled people. Only people who would probably really want this are people who specifically want to LARP as disabled people. And that is like the 99%. Like every person who's, the vast majority of people I've ever met who wanted a combat wheelchair in a TTRPG are not disabled themselves, but either want to do it because they think disabled people want it, or they want to play a disabled person in a TTRPG. But the vast extreme ultra majority of disabled people really hate it, and they think it's really bigoted of you to want it in it, want to push it into it, because it turns. Now, this is the real kick problem. When you have combat wheelchairs and a lot of prosthetics and stuff like that, you end up with a situation of the awkward dork. Oh, Timmy is in a wheelchair. Look, there's a combat wheelchair. Do you want to play a character with combat wheelchair? And you end up being a complete dick to a person in a wheelchair because there's a character, or there's a piece of equipment for a person with a wheelchair in a TTRPG. So, and most people who are disabled are really polite. They don't want to say, hey, you're being an asshole dick, bigot to me. Please don't try to push a combat wheelchair onto me. Okay? Because I'm disabled doesn't mean I want my character disabled. Okay? And this, I've learned this from a lot of disabled people. Okay? They don't like that stuff at all. Straight. But they're polite because they realize that the dumb person trying to, hey, this is a wheelchair, your character can use a wheelchair, is just trying to be really nice to them, but are being really stupid or being really bigoted. But they don't want to say, hey, you're being an asshole for pushing a combat wheelchair at me. It's just that simple. So that is my 2 rants in this video, okay? The vast majority, the insane ultra majority of disabled people don't want to play characters that are disabled. I, in fact, don't recall ever meeting a disabled person who wants to play a character that is disabled. They don't like it. So, continuing on, we have this nice little section of the feats, and then you have the origin feats, which basically replace the features from the 2014 version of Dungeons and Dragons backgrounds. So you got generic feats that you can pick later on, and you also have various things that you 2014 you could pick a sub background, and it comes with a feature which is specific to that background. 2024 you have a generic feat that anyone can pick later on. So there you go. You got more feats. There actually is a slight increase in number of feats in this book. Some of the stuff from Tasha's got back in here, as well as a few feats from Xanathar's Guide to Everything. But not all the feats from Xanathar's Guide to Everything. It is a very nice selection of feats. You also have fighting style feats, which I don't know why they turned those into feats. I guess they turn them into feats so you can actually just be generic and say, this is a fighting style feat. You can pick from a fighting style feat. And then you go to fighting style feats and, oh, there's a new book with more fighting style feats. And then you have epic boons. I actually like the fact that they incorporated epic boons in at level 19 and beyond. I really wish that they continued with past level 20 for levels. Just a little section that says every... so many experience points you go up a level for, and these are the common things that level up in this class. As in every 4 levels, every 2 levels, every 3 levels, you gain a new weapon style fighting epic boon or feat every 5 levels, stuff like that. This is a piece of artwork out of Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, which I also think is based off another piece of artwork from the Eberron, the Last War, or here, just from a different version of this scene. I probably can go thumbing through the book. You got the classic coin equipment section here, talking about the conversion of the coins and the properties of various items. You have the basic properties like loading, range, reach, thrown, two-handed, versatile, and so forth. And then you have also mastery properties like cleave, graze, nick, push, sap, slow, topple, and vex, as well as a list of weapons. They increased the selection of weapons slightly. They added a few more options here, namely musket and pistol, and a few others here and there, but not very much. I do like the fact that they include the artwork for various weapons so people can look at it. A Great Club essentially is a kanobo, which is a Japanese war club that's meant to be used to break armor and stuff like that. You have nice artwork for armor. I personally want to reorganize this whole system right here into a new set of armors, such as create a brigandine category and a few others, and create a new very light armor category and a new very heavy armor category, and put in a new category like heavy, full plate, and stuff like that. You got your tools. It's really nice that they actually break it out into this next section, so you can easily read through the tools. And they also have a little information like, hey, if you want to use potter's tools, it's 10 gold pieces. The ability score you use for it is intelligence. How to use it: discern what ceramic object held in the past 24 hours. DC 15. So if you want to if you have a pot and you look inside of it, it had some liquid in there. You could kind of tell what was in there. And then you also have a craft section that says jug, lamp. So if you want to make pots, you have potter's tools, you can make jugs and lamps. And you could make a lamp or a pot and probably look through here and probably find where pots and lamps have a price value. and sell those. Let's see. A jug is 4 pounds and 2 copper pieces. So if you wanted to make jugs, if you made a 4-pound jug, you can sell them for probably 2 copper pieces if you did a nice job. And if you made a lamp, you could probably sell them for 5 silver pieces. That is a nice little detail here. You got musical instruments, varies, and you have bagpipes, 30 gold pieces, 6 pounds, and so forth. Utilize, play a known tune DC 10 or improvise a tune DC 15. I had to tap that because it blocks the screen. But anyways, this is really nice. This actually gets you a good start point for using the tools and musical instruments in your game to integrate them better into it. Like you got Mason's tools. Mason's tools craft, block, and tackle. That doesn't make sense. It should actually be Mason's tools craft bricks and stone blocks and stuff like that. So there's a weird situation where Wizards of the Coast people, being suburb night and city people, not having to have had to work with concrete and heavy metals and stuff like that, don't quite understand some things. Like you wouldn't be making block and tackle. You could if you wanted to with Mason's tools, but they would break really easy and you would have to replace it constantly. That is an unideal situation. What you would be making is bricks and stone blocks and stuff like that. A block and tackle would be a piece of equipment you might be using, say, like if you were to make something, say, with carpentry or something like that. If you're like raising a beam, you might use a tackle to tie ropes into it, and you have a block to shimmy it up into position. You know, but this is a situation where Wizards of the Coast kind of failed and put something in there that is completely wrong. Because that would not last. If you were to make a block, you would be using carpentry. Because you would make it out of a piece of wood, a block of wood. And tackle is basically a pulley system where you run multiple ropes through and you hoist things up, which you would also make with rope. So you would be using weaver's tools to make the rope, and you would be using carpentry to make the spool. Having a brain fart because of my disability, but anyways, you would be using a pulley system, and you use wood or metal to make a pulley with wheels. So this is a fuck up right here for Wizards of the Coast, and considering that they fucked it up, I'm gonna underline it, and that's completely wrong. Craft climber's kit. Yeah, you could. Cobbler's tools. How about shoes? Boots. So you have cobbler's tools here. 5 gold pieces. You can craft climber's kits. Well, yes, you can craft a climber's kit with what you can take leather, which is, you actually do have a leather worker's kit right down here. So climber's kit should actually be down here in leather worker's kit. You can make climbing kit, half or a quarter of the stuff with a with a leather worker's kit, and the other half of the stuff with a smith's tools to make a climbing kit, because you have to make spikes on a forge and stuff like that, or your pick for your climbing. But what you can do with a cobbler's kit is make boots and shoes and stuff like that, or sandals. Wizards of the Coast fucking shit up. So that is wrong. That is fucking wrong. You can make, if you really wanted to, you can make cobbler's tools. You can use that to make work on leather, because a lot of the tools between cobbler's kits and leather workers' tools overlap. I grew up on a farm. I knew people who work on leather and stuff like that, you know. And I knew people that worked on shoes and stuff like that. So climber's kit, you kinda, but you need some metalworking tools and stuff like that for that. To make the buckles and clasps for that. So they put it in climber's kit, but it should be boots, shoes, and sandals. And then in the case of the mason's tools, you should be able to make bricks and stone blocks. So that's fucked up and wrong. Alchemist supplies, you can make acid, alchemist vial, component pouch, oil, paper, perfume. Yeah, that's correct. Brewer supplies, you can make antitoxin, but also should say beer, wine, champagne, beer, wine, ale, champagne, stuff like that. Calligrapher's tools, ink and spell scroll. Yeah, you can do that with that. Carpenter's tool, you can make a club, great club, quarterstaff, barrel, chest, ladder, pole, portable ram, torch. Yeah, you can do that. Cartographer's tools, map, yes. Cooking utensils, you can make rations, yes. You can also probably add in meals in there. Glass blower's kit, glass bottle, magnifying glass, spyglass vial, yes. Jeweler's tools, arcane focus, holy symbol. Should also include rings and pendants and jeweler's tools that you can make. Leather worker's tools, you can make sling, whip, hide armor, leather armor, studded leather armor, backpack, crossbow case, map, scroll case, parchment, pouch, quiver, water skin. Yes, that's all correct. Painter supplies. Yeah, you can. Druidic focus. You might have to use woodworking tools to make the body of the druidic focus, and you can paint it, or holy symbol if you're painting it on a shield or something like that. That works out. Potter's tools, you can make jugs or lamps or cups or it says jugs, lamps, but I would also included cups, bowls, those and other dishware. Smith's tools, you can make whatever you can make is any melee weapon except club and that looks all right. Ball bearings, buckets, caltrops, chain, crowbar. And that looks right. Tinker's tools, that looks all correct too right there. You can make muskets, pistol, bell, bullseye. Yeah, that's correct. Weaver's tools, that is also correct. All that stuff in there is padded armor, basket, bedroll, blanket, fine clothes, net, robe, rope, sacks, string. Yeah, that's correct. Woodcarver's tools. Yeah, that's correct too. Great club, quarterstaff, ranged weapons, arcane focus, arrows, bolts, druidic focus, ink, pen, needles. So overall, everything here is pretty much good. They could have added a few more options for crafting options in some of the classes for some of the tools. However, they horribly fucked up cobbler's tools and mason's tools. Those are wrong. Psh, outright. The craft section on those are wrong. You might be able to make some parts of the cobbler's climber's kit with cobbler's tools, but you would need also the means of making metal objects then. You can, but also then the cobbler's tools, the climber's kit should also be in the category for leatherworker's tools, because if you're using the tools that you can in the cobbler's kit to make the climber's kit, you should be able to do that with the leather worker's tools as well. Forgery, disguise kit, gaming set is everything else is pretty much fine. It's a rare moment, by the way, if you ever see me pull out a pencil or pen to scratch something out, you know that I spotted something that is so extremely wrong in a book that I'm willing to deface the book to correct it, because it's so stupid but wrong, it's not acceptable. I do like how they box out all the items here, putting a line in there. This is more dyslexic friendly, because by putting this line here and here, or that it caps the top of the climber's kit and the bottom of the climber's kit from the items above and below it, it makes it easier to read each item for people with dyslexia. Holy water, that's nice. Hunting trap. I do generally like how they organized this. I keep saying that, but it is truly nice because it really helps with the dyslexia. You have services and vehicles. You got simple vehicles and critters you can use for transport. They could have probably added a few more options down here, or made a section up here a little bit longer and added a few more things. You got camel, elephant, horse, draft, horse riding, mastiff, mule, pony, war horse. Yeah, those are all the same ones from the 2014. That's pretty much all the same stuff from the 2014. This is probably a little bit this is expanded out right here. I do like the airborne and waterborne vehicles section. This is actually improved quite a bit. They added in more variety of objects, and they also added in more information like the size of the crew, passengers, cargo, tonnage, the AC of the object, the HP. This is really handy dandy right there. That's nice. I like that. This is like the most unused thing I know in any of my groups is lifestyle expenses. No one ever really uses that. But I'm quite sure it's nice to have it there just in case you have a game master that really wants to go into that level of game. There's some more clarification on some rules here on identifying magic items, magic items, attunement, and crafting equipment. That's really nice. Crafting, nice little table for crafting spells scrolls. Scribing a spell scroll. You have this really nice piece of artwork. By the way, Wizards of the Coast, for whatever strange reason, I know the reason. It's called what is his damn name from Critical Role? Good grief, I forgot his name. The gnome bard that uses Bigsby's hand and other stuff. They turned Bigsby from a human into a gnome just because of Critical Role. And they also changed from before Dungeons and Dragons 4th edition. Mordenkainen used to look different. They made more clarification on various features here. This piece of artwork right here, this is actually the most useful piece of artwork that they kept over from the 2014. Would have been better if they put, instead of a star point, they would have put a little person with a hand pointing out, and then the effect going off from that. That would have been superior. There's Emanation and Sphere. That's like an update right there. And then they start right into the spells right here. And they have a nice little section on combining a spell effects right here, if you want it. They include a special stat box for various items, like animated object and a few other things in this book. That's actually quite nice. They added a few new spells throughout it, and they updated various features. And that's kind of nice. I'm not going to flip through all the spells. It's the standard, every so many pages you'll get a piece of artwork of a character using a spell. And the nice thing is that they include a little text section right here in each one of these pieces of art, what it relates to as for a spell. Because I do like a Goma. That's nice that they included Goma from Legend of Zelda in Dungeons and Dragons, By the way, if I get done with my little fun project and release it at some point in the future, and it actually takes off, and Nintendo contacts me with, hey, do you want to make a Legend of Zelda TTRPG? I would sign up on that, and I would tell them, you know what? I do not need tons of money. I don't need a huge pile of money. I just want a tiny little royalty on all the books that sell, and just a little bit over minimum wage, like $10 an hour. I would have to math it out. I would probably have to figure out what kind of wage I want them to pay me, but I'm not going to charge them a lot. I would just make a Legend of Zelda and Super Mario Brothers TTRPGs for Nintendo at the drop of a hat, and probably make it cheap. You got various spirits in the back for summon celestial, summon beast, summon aberration, summon construct, summon dragon. That is a really nice thing that they did with this version, is that they created a summon something. What they probably should have did, what Wizards of the Coast should have did, and I will do myself, is probably make a summon lesser Fey spirit, summon moderate, or summon Fey spirit, and summon greater Fey spirit, and have a different stat block for each one of those spells. So you, instead of just having one spell that with a very basic monster, like a summoned undead, like this one right here, with a basic stat block for that specific range with some minor modifications, you have like 3 versions of it that are appropriate for different levels of conflict. Sunbeam, which is my favorite Kami Kamehameha there is. Very nice artwork. And then we go into the very back here, and we got creature stat boxes. Stat box. I really do like these new versions of stat blocks. They're really nice. I really like the inclusion of the initiative section right here, and the fact that they color section it with the mod and the save right here, and that's really smart. This actually is a bit more of an efficient way of organizing it. I have some ideas for even advancing it beyond this with my system. I'm going to keep that to myself. But you have a really nice variety. The only downside is that you don't have pieces of artwork for every single creature in this, but you do have a good number of creatures. You have, this is the Rules Glossary, Appendix C. This has a nice conversion table for explaining basic concepts in this section as well as throughout the book, as well as a key for various mechanics, like M is for material component, AC is armor class, DM is dungeon master, and so forth. They don't have PC for player character, but oh well. This goes over all the basic rules definitions for the system, basically a dictionary of features for the rules. Nice little tables here and there for everything you need. Very nice artwork across the top on the banner. I really do like that they throw that in there every so often. So overall, I really do like this. And then you have a nice little index right here that makes up for the table of contents in the front being very basic. And then there is no player character sheets whatsoever in the back of the book. Those are sold separately, or I think you also can probably go to Wizards of the Coast online website and download a copy of them and print them out yourself. Maybe. I would think that would be the case is if Wizards of the Coast wasn't a greedy corporation. But you could always use D&D Beyond. Your 6th character, you can sign up for D&D Beyond for a basic account for free completely, and you can get it for, as I said, free, and you can make 6 characters on it. You can buy the Player's Handbook on D&D Beyond. You are not actually buying it. You are basically making a one-time payment to gain a license to have access to it for the duration that Wizards of the Coast chooses people to have access to it. So at any point, Wizards of the Coast could decide, no, we're deleting all 2014 stuff from D&D Beyond, which would be incredibly stupid. My personal opinion is for D&D Beyond that Wizards of the Coast should include all older editions as options for character sheets and character books, so they can resell you all. They can release you all the D&D 3.5, 4th edition, 3rd edition, 2nd edition, 1st edition, BX, BECME, OD&D stuff, as well as all the other stuff. That way, they can resell you. That way, they can make another sale on just, say, like, you want to buy a copy of the Living Greyhawk Gazetteer from Wizards of the Coast. The other books are really hard to pull out because they're under another book or object. Or if you wanted to, say like you wanted to play Dungeons & Dragons 3.5 edition with your buddies. Wizards of the Coast can have, oh, this got a lot. Wizards of the Coast can sell you the lease for the player's handbook for D&D 3.5. And they can have character sheets on there. And then they can have Avery on Sigil. Avery on Discord and Sigil have basically a command like, oh, I want to set system to, you type in system and D&D 3.5, and it clicks into D&D 3.5 mode, and you can play Dungeons & Dragons 3.5. Oh, and that's it. That'd be awesome, and you would make a ton of money, and you could probably make a sell a special license like, oh, I gain access to D&D 3.5, still can run it. So there you go. I hope you have a delightful day, a nice night, a wonderful weekend, magnificent month, and see you next time. And I just realized I really need to get going.